Department of Justice for investigating the use of excessive force by the 4 officers, and I insist that anyone who does violence to innocent citizens or to property in California be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law. As I speak, 2,000 California National Guardsmen, 750 California Highway Patrol officers are being deployed with Los Angeles County Sheriffs, Los Angeles Police Department units to assist in their efforts to arrest violators and to restore order. One final word. As there is no place in California for violence or lawlessness, so there can be no place for racism. Not for racism of any kind. It represents the worst in human nature. It is sick and it is ugly. It breeds mindless injustice. I am ashamed of those whom I watched on television, looting, breaking the law, presenting to the world a picture that is not the Los Angeles of the decent multitudes of all races, but instead a different Los Angeles, an ugly place of distorted values inhabited by a lawless minority of all races. The real and lasting values of the decent multitudes must prevail. The values of Dr. King and Justice Marshall, that young woman protesting the senseless destruction of her neighborhood. It will require courage on the part of the decent multitude to prevail over the racists and the lawless. It will require the kind of courage exhibited by the black man who risked his life defying an angry mob to escort a motorist to safety. When interviewed on television, this Good Samaritan was asked why he had intervened to help the white motorist. He said simply, this wasn't a racial issue, but instead an issue of basic humanity. Well, that man of courage speaks for all people of goodwill and courage in all of Los Angeles and all of California. He speaks for the Los Angeles and for the California that we must all insist upon. Happy to take your questions.
LA officials to lose the guard on the street.
And I don't think there was reluctance. I think that there was some delay occasioned by some slowness in communication. What has happened now is that there have been meetings, at least one which I participated by telephone, that involved Chief Gates, Sheriff Block, the Director of the Office of Emergency Services, Dick Andrews, by telephone, General Thrasher. It involved others, and it sought to coordinate the missions of the guardsmen who, under the protocol, go into an area accompanied by regular law enforcement units. That is what is in progress at this moment.
So why are they only now going into the street?
I think that there was delay occasioned both, as I say, by the inability to communicate missions, to task missions. That was what occasioned this joint meeting this afternoon. And also there was some delay occasioned for logistical reasons that have to do with equipping the guard. Guardsmen themselves have been in the city, some 2,000 of them in about 13 armories all throughout the Los Angeles area since around midnight.
Greater state of readiness before the verdict, in anticipation of the verdict, and potential for this kind of reaction?
Well, I am advised that precautions were taken, that preparations were made by the law enforcement units in Los Angeles, specifically the Los Angeles Police Department and the Sheriff's Office, anticipating the possibility of a verdict that might spark reactions of the kind that we have in fact seen. The role of the Guard is to be in support of them in time of civil insurrection. And the concern that we have had is to move as many as were requested rapidly as possible so that they could be available just as soon as possible to support regular law enforcement. Last night, I think the first call I had from Mayor Bradley was around 7 o'clock. I spoke to him again an hour and a half or 2 hours later. At that time, in conjunction with the other officials in a conference call, essentially the same people who were on this call early this afternoon. And I had responded that we would make the troops available, directed General Thatcher to do so without delay. We have been asked to provide, in addition to the 2,000 that were the subject of the mayor's initial request, some 750 California Highway Patrol officers. Since that time, because of the situation in Los Angeles, the request has come for additional CHP officers and additional guardsmen. We are responding to that request. We will respond to it fully. And we are
property and use of force.
The role for the Guard is to support the regular law enforcement officers perform a security mission so that the officers themselves may make arrests. The professional law enforcement officers of the police department and of the sheriff's department require the assistance of the Guard in a situation of this kind to secure property. If they go into a shopping center that has been looted or is...
Are you able to cut around underneath here or no?
If they then leave it, they find the looters return. So what they have been asking is the support of the Guard to secure the property so that people will not come back in. That also allows them to not only be elsewhere, but to concentrate not simply on moving the looters out. This morning I saw footage that showed officers coming in and looters going out the back doors. The looters were fleeing the property, but the officers were largely consigned to trying to get them out and were, because of the numbers involved, unable to make the arrests that are, I think, essential as a deterrent to not only those present, but also the spread of that looting impulse.
Logistical problems including the Guard.
The chief problem has been with respect to ammunition.
If the Guard is fired upon, will they fire back if they're
If the
attacked?
Guard is,
Can you finish that?
if the Guard is fired upon, in certain circumstances, they will in fact fire back in order to protect themselves, in order to protect innocent people.
They've been issued ammunition on a per soldier basis.
No, they are being issued ammunition as the need arises. Ammunition is with each mission.
What's the problem with ammunition? Alluded to.
The problem with ammunition was that it was slow in coming from Camp Roberts.
Governor, do you envision a circumstance in which the Guard's role would change and become a more active law enforcement posture rather than a sort of security posture that you've outlined? I mean, is that
No,
possible?
not at this time. The need for the Guard, I think, is quite real and genuine, but it is in the role that I have described.
Governor, do you think the jury erred in its verdict?
George, I didn't sit through the trial. All I've seen, like you and others I suspect, is that same videotape. Now, the videotape raises questions that, to put it mildly, are unsettling. And I would have guessed from that tape that there would be a different outcome, a different verdict. But what I am pleased is that there is a second look being taken. I spoke last night to Judge Lourdes Baird, who is the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, and she told me that they were resuming the investigation that had been abated in order to allow local officials to conduct their own prosecution.
I think there's any role for David.
Jointly with the government?
No, I would say clearly there isn't a role, because under the rules of double jeopardy, regardless of what your feeling is about the verdict, they cannot be prosecuted by the state. They will, if prosecuted, be prosecuted by the federal authorities under federal law.